Okay, let's jump right into this. Today, we're unpacking one of the most mind-bending pieces of speculative evolution you are literally ever going to come across. This explainer covers The Feathered Architects of Tawa, a Vyrn technological treatise. Now, usually when we think about advanced, intelligent life out there in the cosmos, we just assuming their tech tree is going to look a lot like ours, right? You start with a controlled fire, invent the wheel, hit the Bronze Age, and eventually end up with silicon chips. But what happens when a totally different kind of creature inherits the stars? That's exactly what we're diving into today. So, to really wrap our heads around this, we have to ask one massive what-if question. What if the asteroid just missed? Picture this. We're traveling 42 light-years away to a super-Earth known as Tawa. It's this dense, oxygen-rich planetary hothouse. And, crucially, it completely skipped that catastrophic asteroid impact that ended the Cretaceous period here on Earth. Because of that, a specific lineage of cursorial, feathered theropod dinosaurs, creatures very similar to our raptors, just kept right on evolving for another 60 million years. It's truly incredible to realize that the result of that uninterrupted evolutionary sequence is a hyper-intelligent species called the Vyrn. Now, you really gotta notice the core evolutionary divergence here. Look at humanity. We evolved from shivering, vulnerable mammalian prey. We literally had to invent tools just to survive, to compensate for our physical weakness against the monsters in the dark. But the Vyrn? They were never weak. We're talking about beings standing 2.5 meters tall, covered in iridescent plumage, boasting binocular vision, razor-sharp talons, and just devastating agility. They were already perfect apex predators. They didn't need to invent spears or axes to hunt. So their entire technological foundation arose purely from the instinct to nurture, to build complex nests, and to communicate. They completely bypassed the wheel and the internal combustion engine, just skipped them entirely. Okay, let's dive into this first big area. Part I, living cities of bone. Imagine a sprawling skyline, but absolutely throw out everything you know about how a city is constructed. The contrast is just stark. Human architecture, it's all built through extraction, right? We dig up dead materials, stone, timber, iron, concrete, and we just stack them all together. But the ancestors of the Vyrn laid calcified eggs and had these hollow, pneumatized skeletal systems that were reinforced by a biological lattice. So when they started looking for architectural inspiration, they didn't look down at the dirt, they looked inward. They utilize living matrices. The absolute bedrock of their material science is a process defined as osteometallurgy. Basically, by selectively breeding these lithosponges and microbial mats that secrete calcium, the Vyrn figured out how to actually grow their structures. Take their sprawling capital city, Chicxulub. It's a dizzying forest of spiraling skeletal towers made of a hyperdense, engineered composite. They literally created weaponized bone steel. It's wild. Lighter than aluminum, but as strong as titanium. And because it's a grown, living matrix, these buildings have engineered biological pumps acting like giant reptilian hearts. They circulate nutrient-rich sap through vascular microcanals to self-repair any microfractures. Their bioengineers, called city weavers, use chemical markers and pheromones to literally guide the growth of their skyscrapers. Right, so the crucial question is, how on earth do you power a living city without burning fossil fuels? Well, the Vyrn never even bothered burning ancient biomatter. They consider it deeply inefficient. Instead, they use thermobrewed reactors. See, because their ancient ancestors used to incubate their eggs in hot volcanic sands, the Vyrn naturally built their entire energy grid around geothermal dynamics. They drilled down to subterranean magma chambers and set up these massive arrays of extremophile bacteria. These bacteria literally consume thermal energy and excrete pure, stable electrical current, what they call electric blood, which just flows right up into their cities. And here's the most brilliant part. This process also bleeds off the mantle pressure, meaning the Vyrn completely prevent earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. They actively manage their planet's geology. Moving right along to part 2, light and sound engineering. Take a second and look at the screen you're watching this explainer on right now. To a Vyrn, our cutting-edge tech would look agonizingly, painfully slow. I mean, human computing relies on binary electrical currents moving through silicone chips. But the Vyrn, they have tetrachromatic avian vision. They see near ultraviolet light and possess a way higher flicker fusion rate than we do. Because they originally communicated in the wild by flashing structural colors in their plumage, Vyrn computing skipped electronics entirely. They went straight to photonics. Their computers are biological quartz matrices where data is stored as frequencies of light bouncing around inside microscopic mirrors. To interface with it, a Vyrn uses their sensory feathers to manipulate a 3D holographic field of polarized light. It looks like a beautifully choreographed dance. And since data transmits optically via atmospheric polarization, their internet is literally in the air. They can look up and see the flow of global data streams right in the sky. So, while light is their medium for data, sound is their medium for industry. Both dinosaurs and birds possess a syrinx, an organ that lets them produce two overlapping frequencies at the exact same time. The Vyrn pushed acoustic physics to completely unimaginable heights with the syrinx engine. They weaponize sound. By generating highly specific, intersecting sine waves, they can manipulate barometric pressure enough to levitate massive objects. Just picture an industrial sector with zero grinding gears, just a multitonal symphony guided by acoustic conductors who literally sing heavy bone steel infrastructure into place. And for defense, they use resonance rifles. These silent weapons blast a hypersonic shockwave tuned perfectly to the exact resonant frequency of an attacker's skeletal structure, instantly liquefying their nervous system from the inside out. Do not mess with the Vyrn.
All right, that brings us to part 3, biological transit and medicine.
You got to keep in mind, the Vyrn have these incredibly lightweight, pneumaticized skeletons and highly efficient unidirectional lungs. They were born to leap and glide. The whole concept of rolling a heavy, friction-laden wheel across the dirt is utterly counterintuitive to them. So their transit system is entirely aerial, rooted in aerobotanics. The Vyrn genetically engineered colossal canopy flora called aerokelp. They bred these into massive, hollowed-out biodirigibles, living airships that generate their own hydrogen lifting gas, propelled silently by acoustic thrusters at the stern. And for personal transit, they definitely don't drive cars. They wear strut gliders woven from hypertensile spider silk and carbon nanotube feathers. They just casually leap from a mile-high bone steel spire and ride the thermal updrafts at their concrete-free cities in massive synchronized flocks. And their approach to medicine, it's just as beautifully alien. Because of their hyperactive immune systems, the Vyrn rely on resonant genetics. Rather than using scalpels or chemical pharmaceuticals, Vyrn physicians, who are called blood singers, place a patient inside a fluid-filled resonant womb. That fluid is actually suspended with programmable bacteriophages and stem cells. The blood singer then uses microscopic syrinx emitters to broadcast incredibly specific acoustic waves straight into the fluid. This physically alters the shape of proteins, literally programming the medicine in real time. They can acoustically command organisms to knit bones or rewrite corrupted DNA. The patient is quite literally sung back to health.
And this brilliantly illustrates our next section, part 4, cultivating the cosmos. Inevitably, the Vyrn looked up to the stars, but they approached spaceflight in a way only a biologically integrated species ever could. To the Vyrn, riding a column of controlled explosive fire into space is chaotic and appalling. Instead, they do it in 4 steps. Step 1, volcanic railguns. They line dormant volcanic tubes with piezoelectric crystals to create a planetary-scale electromagnetic launcher. Step 2, they travel in biological void nests. No sterile metal corridors here. The inside of a Vyrn's ship is a dense, bioluminescent jungle where zero-gravity vines scrub the CO2 and the crew enters a cold-blooded avian torpor inside artificial eggs. Step 3, they cross the solar system using highly efficient plasma pulse drives modeled after deep ocean bioluminescence. And finally, step 4, when they arrive at a lifeless moon, they don't strip mine it or build dome cities. They release engineered terraforming spores to consume the rock and weave an atmosphere over time. They don't colonize, they cultivate. Which brings us to our final section, part 5, the philosophy of integration.
To truly grasp the Vyrn, you have to understand the mind behind all this machinery. As the source treatise explains, human technology is largely driven by a philosophy of dominion. We view nature as a hostile force to be paved over and conquered, and that's a direct result of our ancestral trauma of being prey on the savannah. But the Vyrn? They have no such ancestral trauma. They were the undisputed apex predators for over 100 million years. Therefore, their philosophy is apex integration. They act as curators of the natural order. They inherently know that a predator destroys itself if it destroys its ecosystem. So, Vyrn technology is cyclical, biodegradable, and completely ecologically harmonious. It's why, if we pointed our radio telescopes at Tawa right now, we would see no smog, no orbital junk, no radio waves. We'd see a pristine green jewel and falsely assume it was devoid of advanced civilization, completely blind to the descendants of raptors dancing in holographic light beneath the canopy. Which leaves us with this one final profound thought from the treatise. What heights could a civilization reach if it spent its genius not on conquering its world,
but on perfecting its place within it. The Vyrn offer us a speculative, awe-inspiring alternative to industrialization. They show us what it might look like to hold the reins of a planet, not by breaking it to our will, but by literally singing in harmony with it. Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer. I really hope this sparked your curiosity, and I definitely encourage you to keep questioning the infinite possibilities of the cosmos. Catch you next time.
Please like and subscribe.